Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's edition of the Gripe Session podcast. And as always, around this time of year, we always try to get some people from camp. Most of the time we have coaches, but today we do have a first. We have the very first camper to be on the Gripe Session podcast. Now, the camper, when I started thinking about what camper I wanted to have on, I was kind of thinking, I was like, well, who's somebody that, is everyone loves, is well respected in camp, and all of those types of things. And quite honestly, I couldn't find anybody, so I had to ask this next person, the newest Hall of Famer from week 2, Christian Manganelli, aka known as the Mango. Mango, what's up, everybody? Tell everybody what's up.
Very happy to be here. I'm honored to be to have picked. I mean, obviously, I wish somebody else answered the phone, but here I am.
Well, that's right. You're the one dumb enough to answer the phone at that point. So
there you go. It didn't say scam likely, so I picked it up.
Yes. Well, not that you know of, but that's another conversation. But anyway, so Mango, first and foremost, why don't you let everybody know kind of what you do for a living? Tell them, exactly how you came forward to coming down to camp. And then we're going to get into camp a little bit later, but at least let people know about you, what you are, who you, kind of what exactly you do.
Excellent. I wake up every morning and ask myself what I do. Some days I'm a producer. Some days I'm a traffic cop. Some days I'm a psychiatrist. And most of the days I'm just trying to keep everything moving. My actual title is technical producer, where I deal with all kinds of live events, whether it be TV, concerts, corporate meetings, sponsorship activations. And I'm sort of for lack of better terms, I'm the conductor. So I try to make sure that every different piece of the orchestra is playing correctly, in time, and in tune with everybody else. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, every day is a new day. I find myself, even though I've been doing this for quite a few years, that there's always a lot of challenges. I currently work for myself. I've got a LLC called Chris Manganelli Productions. Thank God I'm a production company and not a creative agency, because that name isn't that creative. But I basically ladder up and ladder down as far as how many different people I work with. A lot of different colleagues that I've come in contact with over the years. They're my client base. And, I'm kind of if you need something, chances are I've figured it out, whether it be a trade show, TV show, concert tour, or just giving out Tic Tacs in the middle of Times Square. We've seen it all, we've done it all. I started in college, a place called the PNC Bank Art Center. I started there my freshman year of college, started as a runner. At that time, the Parkway Authority, the same great folks that we travel up and down the Jersey Shore on, I used to be responsible for the place. They gave me a car, they gave me a packet of different highway tokens and just sent me on my way. And I'd be basically just doing all kinds of running for bands. I did that all through college, and each year I found myself in a different position at the Art Center and made my way up to production coordinator. Rather than getting a real job at a college, I just kept going with that. Went to Radio City, did a Super Bowl, stayed at Radio City, did a couple other things, and knock on wood, since 1999, 98, I've been pretty busy, nonstop.
Awesome. Great. So obviously, one of the tie-ins to this podcast, and obviously to me meeting you, has been Mets Fantasy Camp. How did you learn about Mets Fantasy Camp? What brought you to Mets Fantasy Camp? Kind of talk about that for a minute.
Sure. Like everybody else, I mean, I've always obviously loved the Mets. I think it started around 35 when I started seeing things online, but I never really got it on time. A good buddy of mine who I went to college with, a gentleman named Rich Nocella, who was also a big Mets fan. We always talked about doing it together. And it was something that I kind of didn't pursue. And then for my 40th birthday, my family gave this to me. And it was a pretty incredible night. I remember we had a little party around the corner from my house. It was all my close family members, and we've got a couple jokes in my family. And one of them is the gifts that we give each other. Normally, me being who I am, I always get the free toiletry bag that's given after you give the cologne away to other people. And I got this little Mets garbage can, which I was like, okay, that's mine. That's great. They're gonna give me something else. And then it had my baseball glove and arrow. At the time it was my softball glove because I hadn't played baseball in forever. And I was like, kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of put it aside. And I got elbowed in the ribs, and I was told, look at the bottom of the bag, you fucking moron. So I did. And it was a plaque, a printed out piece of paper that said, you've been given a gift of Mets fantasy camp. And this was in 2017. And I was touched. If someone would have told me at that moment what that little piece of paper that said you've been given a gift of Mets fantasy camp would have, how that would have played out for the rest of the over the last 7 years, I would have said you're full of shit. I can't imagine, can't count the ways how much this experience has enriched my life every day from the day I got that, well, not necessarily the day I got that piece of paper, but the day that piece of paper came to fruition to now.
Yeah. So, I mean, for those of that watched and listened to this podcast over the amount of years that we've been doing it, what I've told people from day one is I was supposed to be, as we've all known in camp, as a one and done. I wanted to do this. It would have been a dream. And yes, the cost factor is up there, but the actual experience of going to camp, another camper labeled this family camp. And that once you go to camp and as soon as you go back, you realize that this is one big happy family. One of the things that has consistently gone on, and I know like in my life, like good times and bad times, there's always messages that come from campers. And the campers actually do become like family. Just like we fight like family members, we break chops like family members do. It's the one experience that I continuously tell people. I could tell you about camp, and whatever that I would be able to tell you about camp, or whatever Mango would be able to tell you about camp, would not come anywhere close to you experiencing it for the first time. And we're actually almost underselling what camp is all about. Talk about your first camp experience, what it was like basically just walking in there.
I, like everybody else, I got there a day early. And I remember, it was the first camp. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of content available, way back in 2017, the dark ages. You saw a couple, I searched rigorously the internet to see all the different YouTube posts. And I saw some pretty cool things. People hanging out in the locker room. I saw people celebrating, but there wasn't that much interaction. There wasn't much give and take. So coming in there, I knew that there was going to be stuff. My first interaction, it was Sunday morning before you can sign up because it was like 8 a.m. I was walking through the lobby from my hotel room trying to get to the elevator and hit the elevator. And a little guy had to be like, 4 or 5 years old, comes flying around the corner, wants to say hello, all excited, want to hit the button. Next thing you know, I hear this voice. Couldn't understand the voice or what they were saying, but I guess he was definitely calling the little guy's name. I look up and all of a sudden there's Doc Good. And I'm just like, for my first camp memory, to have Doc Good and a guy who was like, a childhood idol growing up. I mean, can't tell you how many different times we imitated him playing wiffle ball in the backyard and all that stuff. And then to have this, giant turn around the corner and obviously seeing my face, and he acknowledged me as a camper. And it was like from that second on, it was like memory after memory after memory. Then you flash forward to, you jump in the bus. You don't necessarily know people at that point. I certainly didn't. I was one of the first up and first in there, and took the bus over with Ed, the bus driver, which is amazing. Fast Eddie. Well, fast at times. I'm glad he's still with us, and I'm glad he was one of my first memories. And I remember walking in camp, and I see this point, it was the most amazing experience because my locker is right there as you walk in the door. Mm-hmm. And I got broken up, and I didn't know what to do at that point. I was trying to say something, and then I was kind of godsmacked because Alan Pasco, a former camper walked by in just his jock strap, and the visceral response I had to him, almost throwing up, kind of brought me back to reality. Kidding. Alan's a great guy. But it was from then on. And then you look at your locker and you take a picture of your locker and you see your name and you see your jersey. And then you walk around, you like seeing everything else. And as you're doing all this stuff, your head's on a swivel because you're seeing a bunch of other guys who are experiencing the same thing as you. And like, everybody has this same shit-eating grin on their face. Like, Christmas morning, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Christmas morning is, you know, at that time was a 40-year-old guy. And I was just like, this is amazing. And then you say hello to people. And then you meet more people. And you just you see your first pro. And then you have your first dinner. And like, literally, it's been an experience that, you know, I can't explain. I mean, the first day was a big blur.
I remember my first camp and walking in and exactly what you're talking about.
What year was that, Georgie?
So this will be, I'm going into my 5th year this year. So what's that, 2019? I think you have 2 years. This will be your what, 8th?
17, 18.
Actually,
19,
hold on. No, 2019. That's right. Because I have one of the trophies on the back. That was my first year. So 2019 was my first year.
Well, 19, I think it was in your week. Because for the first 2 weeks, maybe it was 2020, it was in your week. Anyway, and you felt the same thing.
When I walked in, and the first thing was, I saw the locker, and I'm like, and like you said, you start getting a little bit choked up. Like, this is the boyhood dream, right? And I can remember going out for the evaluations, right? Where they see, you know, what can you do? And they try to put everybody together and get, you know, try to make some even teams and stuff. And I remember walking in after the evals, and this was my first day. And I was done. I'm like, I'm going to go relax for a little bit. I want to go in the locker room and take it all in. And everybody's out on the field still and joking around. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to, like, you always get told, don't go nuts the first day. So I was taking that to heart. So I'm like, all right, I'm going inside, take everything off. And I'm sitting at my locker in a pair of shorts and a tank top, sitting on my stool, go in the refrigerator, grab a couple of beers, sitting on my stool just to take it in. The locker room is empty. And I've told this story a number of times. And I'm just sitting there and taking it in. Mackie Sasser's locker is right across from me. Jeff Innes, God rest his soul, is 2 away from me. Mookie Wilson is 5 away from me. Todd Pratt is diagonally away from me. I'm like, this is the coolest shit imaginable. So as I'm sitting there and I have one beer on the one side and I'm drinking the other beer, and Todd Pratt comes walking in, Tank, as we all know him and love him. I was walking in, I'm in the middle row, and he just stops dead, looks at me, and he goes, "What's up, bud?" I'm like, "Not much, just sitting here." He goes, "You all done with evals?" I go, "Yep." He looks at me drinking, and he goes, you know you got a game to play this afternoon. Do you think that's going to be an issue?" And I go, "This ain't going to be the issue." Pick up the other beer, I go, "This one might be the issue." So he looks at me and just deadpan. Now, for those of you that have not seen Tank in a while, I mean, you know Tank. Tank is not a small man. And he just deadpan stares at me and just looks at me and he goes, I'm like, Jesus, I just pissed this big freaking guy off. He goes, "I'm drafting you on principle." And turns and just walks away. And it was the funniest thing, even to this day. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And every year at camp, I have been on Tank's team. So like, those are the things that just, they come back at camp. And when people ask me all the time about camp, the one thing, I mean, you talked about Doc. Growing up, I had a picture of Doc on my wall. The picture of him pitching with his hand up like this, and it was the airplane exhaust that was behind his hand to make it look the bowl was smoking. And I said, that was on my wall as a kid. I go, here's what I find. Now I have Doc's cell phone number in my phone. Like, it's just like the unimaginable type of stuff And a lot of the coaches do respond to you, which is hysterical. So what would as a brand spanking new Hall of Famer, what would you say has been so far your best camp memory?
Well, the first year was just everything. You took everything in. I mean, the memories, there's a number of memories. If I was trying to take the time and write it down, which is probably a nice exercise, just to remind myself of how lucky I am to have been able to go to a bunch. But there's been a couple different camps where, last year especially, I was able to play with a family, which was amazing. A father and two sons. Something that was actually, it meant a lot to see that. It happened before, but it was the first time I got to witness that and get to hang out and see the interactions between the family members and stuff, which was incredibly cool. And in a week too, I got to meet an uncle and a nephew that played, which was also very, very cool. I mean, they hadn't spoken. I mean, they've been friendly, they've been, family, but they hadn't really spent this kind of time together in this kind of situation, which was really, really fun to watch. But, the memories that we've had, like I said, it's going to take a little while to bring them all up. But I think my goal moving forward, going to every other camp is, to make memories for other people, like to take the pictures for the people to be there for the guy who's going to see his locker for the first time,
yep.
Or to to the father and the son, or the mom and the cousin, however it is, but to help make memories for other people, because I've got my cloud, the pictures in my mind's eye, my iCloud is full, but it's now how I can do stuff for other people, and for my friends, like George, to be on your team and watch you hit another really hard ball out of the infield. It's going to be great. I want to make that video for you. I want to watch you catch that one ball. No, it's I go for me because this is it's the greatest 2 weeks of my life, but I also want to make it something for other people.
I agree. And you know what the funny part about camp is, and everybody talks about on the fan pages and stuff like that, we talk about the experience of camp, right? And it's amazing to me how after you go that first year and the following year, now you're known as a veteran, not a rookie anymore. As soon as you step foot in that clubhouse, you're now a veteran, right? Like the joke is that even the rookies from last year for last year's camp, we've have our group chats that still go on, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a veteran now." I'm like, no, you're not. When you step into clubhouse this year, now you're a veteran. But until you do that, you're still a rookie. I don't care if we're in the hotel, you're still a rookie until you step in there. Now you're a veteran. So the ball breaking continues to go on, but I find it's almost like a rite of passage, if you will, where once you're a rookie and then you've watched a lot of the veterans again try to help you and take part and take pictures and do those kinds of things. By the time I got to my second and third year, I'm like you. I was like, I want to make your experience that much better, so you come back and you tell somebody else about it, because I'm getting more joy out of watching you than even going and playing ball at this point, because you're now a part of the family. You're now seeing what we all know. A lot of things that, again, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I go to this thing and it's like, yeah, there's guys we shake hands with. I go, but there's more hugs that go around at fantasy camp than handshakes, if you will. People that, the veterans and everybody becomes family towards the end of the camp. And to me, it's literally, I circle it every single year as the best thing on the calendar for me. It's like Christmas, as you said earlier. So
we all go in there as, without knowing anybody. And we come out, knowing 120 people.
Yeah.
Unless you're kind of like, a little bit more selective. 19. No, I'm kidding.
Well, guess what? You're here, so you can't kick me off the list at this point yet.
No, I wouldn't. And going back to the whole like fantasy camp is only 1 week a year, but and you touched on this before, there's not a day that goes by that you don't get a text message from someone.
Yeah.
Whether you reach out to a coach reaches out to you, an old like team chat comes up, or I think of something stupid and I text you, or you think of something stupid and text me. It's just an amazing kind of interaction that takes place. So there's a movie. It makes me think about it now. And the beginning scene is, for those that don't know, no explanations available. And for those that do know, no explanations needed. And that's kind of like the way I try to describe fantasy camp for people.
That's a good explanation. 100%. You don't know until you get there. And then once you get there, you're like, how did I not know?
I think it's a Catholic movie, but we don't want to bring that up.
Probably not. It probably wouldn't work out real well. We start talking about politics and all sorts of stuff, but we know where that's going to go, so we don't want to go down that road. So. Oh my goodness! This is not on the official page, so it's all fine. Anyways,
trying to make it very antiseptic, Georgie.
There you go. So we've been on this for a little while. So one of the things that I always like to do is we'd like to have like a lightning rod for all of our guests. And again, we appreciate you coming on today with your newly crowned Hall of Fame that you so righteously got in last year. And that was great to be there and watch that happen. Your speech was phenomenal, by the way. One of the things that we like to do in a lightning round normally is throw a bunch of different questions out there and just give you kind of a choice. But normally what we'll do when we start talking about camp and we have the coaches on is we do it kind of baseball related. So are you ready for the lightning round?
We'll give it a go.
All right. So AL or NL? NL. Designated hitter or pitcher batting?
I do like the DH.
You do like the DH. Okay, that's a little bit different. Bigger bases or no bigger bases?
Based on my lack of athletic prowess as I get older, I'll take anything I can.
So I'm going to say bigger bases for Mango.
Bigger bases.
Yeah. Pitch clock or no pitch clock?
No pitch clock. Being the event guy that I am, they haven't mentioned this, but like literally, and being the person that I am, you make the games quicker. You take us away from experiencing any of the food or the booze. Everyone loses out in the end, because there is, regardless of wherever you are, the Mets are tied to a bunch of different charities, and some of those charities come out of that money that they get from food and beverage. Not only food and beverage from the charities, but the people. At the end of the day, pitch clock causes people money.
I agree. I was the first thing that I said when they proposed it. I thought it was the dumbest thing, and say, well, we're trying to keep the young people in the game. And my response to that was, have you ever been to a game previously? Everyone's got their phones. They're looking at their phones, but they're at the game. So that's
just about the people who work for us to make sure we enjoy the game.
Exactly.
And that's the concessionaires.
Exactly. Ghost runner in extra innings on second base or
in
not?
Life, I can use a ghost runner in life.
Well, I can use a ghost runner in life, but we're talking about they put the runner on second base in extra innings to try to get the game over.
That's all. It's the same thing that goes back to pitch clock. I mean, it's not baseball.
Yep, I firmly agree. Now, this is not a multiple choice question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. More importantly, and just probably remember that at some point this will be shown at camp, so make your decision wisely. Who is your favorite coach that has coached you at camp? Now, the people that know, just to give you a little time to process that, there are camp rovers that rove around, like Doug Flynn, Doc Gooden. They don't really coach a team, but they walk around and they talk with everybody and go from there. So, but for the people that when you've been on a team and been coached, who has been the best coach or coaching duo, if you will? I'll give you two because we know they coach in duos. I'll give you two.
Well, I have to go back to first ones, best ones, and it was a great experience for me. So I'm going to go with Phil Regan and Ron Swoboda. Not that I haven't enjoyed. I was lucky enough to have Jeff Innes, Heath Bell, I've had KB a couple times. I mean, I've had a bunch of great folks, but I have to say, folks who taught me to play in the, the whole fantasy camp way, it would have been Phil Regan and Ron Swoboda.
Good answer.
Now, having a couple different, if I can take it a step forward,
sure.
When you walk into camp, you had like who you wanted to play for, and I was lucky enough to play with Hojo and Barry Lyons. Hojo was an idol growing up, so being able to play for Hojo and Barry Lyons, as well as Mookie and Fonzie, that was also very special.
Nice.
But most favorite, because of the way it was like, I learned how to play in this league, would have been Ron and Phil.
I always remember, you never forget the first coaches that you had. My first was Pratt and Pete Shurik. And then I've had Pratt and Mackey the last couple of years, which has been tremendous. But I had Heath Bell a year, and I also had Ricky Bones that was part of that trio at one point. And they're all great coaches, and they were great people. And so the rest of the coaches in camp. The best part about camp is it's really hard to not have a coach that you're gonna like. It's very difficult.
It's if you come in with the understanding of what camp is all about, and you understand that, like, someone on your team might be a 95-year-old proctologist whose like fantasy in life was to play shortstop at Mets Fantasy Camp, and the coach allows him to do that. Like, that's the right coach.
Yep.
The coaches allow these experiences where, certain campers at times go, hey, who, what? And if, you got to go in with the understanding that it's everybody's fantasy camp, and everybody's going to want to have their fantasy.
100%. Absolutely. Well, Mango, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to come and sit on the podcast for a little bit. Obviously, when this airs, we probably will be down in fantasy camp, obviously having some fun and some libations and go from there. And as always, when I talk about fantasy camp, we have to give the props that we always do, the man who has probably had more shout outs on this podcast than any person imaginable, Doug Dickey, who runs fantasy camp, does probably one of the best jobs of fantasy camp of all Major League Baseball. Now, granted, I am a little bit biased because I've been to Mets fantasy camp, but from everything I've heard around fantasy camps, that ours is kind of top rate. And Doug does a great job, especially holding the ship together with a bunch of degenerates that some of us happen to be. Two of them are looking at your screen right now that you're looking at. But that being said, we all have a good time. We all have fun. And again, it turns into family, goes from fantasy to family that very much quickly. So we always give Doug definitely shots out for that. So
I couldn't agree more. Dougie is a consummate professional who works, tirelessly day and night to make sure that everybody has the time of their life. And as I mentioned before, I think our jobs as veterans is to also help Doug and do whatever we can to make the next generation of campers enjoy themselves immensely.
Exactly. All right, well, Mango, we definitely appreciate you coming on today. Like I said, we'll see you in a couple weeks. And again, anything else you want to throw out there?
Hey, George, thank you. This is the first time I've ever been asked to do a live OnlyFans recording. So I'm honored.
That's not true. That's not true. We've heard about your OnlyFans.
It's the second time.
It's the second time you got caught. That's all it is.
I'm all good. Let's go Mets, and we'll see everybody in a couple weeks. Be safe and take it easy, everybody.
All right, pal. Take it easy. Be good.